Well, it's kind of difficult to have two teams that are winless. It's even more difficult for a team to be undefeated. And I don't even know how to say this. Can one of you guys win a game or lose? Alright, so we're getting on to week 9 right now. And it's really kind of crazy at this point. Just because of the few teams that actually won last week and a few teams that actually didn't win last week. Panthers are still undefeated as of now. And it's kind of difficult to even say right now. They have almost 1,000 points at this point in time. And they have also generally 20 more points than any other team on average per game, and have only allowed 600, which is not necessarily the lowest. There are other teams that do have a slightly lower amount. For example, the Supermen have lower points allowed than the Panthers, but there's a big problem with the Superman versus the Panthers. The Supermen are only 4-3-1 versus the Panthers, who are 8-0. Now, to be honest, team being 8-0, this would be the one team that's kind of not surprising considering of the last couple years of actually those teams. Looking back in the playoffs, like the playoff record, you'll see the Panthers have won the last couple of years. In fact, at this point in time, let me make sure I'm right about this. There's 16. And currently they have 296 wins since their last loss. I think that is correct. It may be a little bit off from that. And just looking at the contents of the last week, yeah, I'm actually missing 18. They have 314 straight wins right now. 314. Now, 14 and a half, 314 straight wins without actually having any losses since them. Their last loss was, this is, I should say, this would be during the regular season. Playoffs not count, the Panthers have had 3 losses in the playoffs since 2007, which was the first year where they actually had more than 8 wins. Panthers have won since 2009 and have not lost a game since then. Now, granted, there was 1 year where they did not actually have a draft. They did not actually have a year, and previously there was 3 seasons where they went back to back to back. So there was actually alliance versus the team that is. They have only at this current time won 19 games. They didn't even have a position in 2017, and have lost way more. But granted, they have done a lot better than this. But looking at this, it could be potentially anybody who can make the playoffs at this point in time. I mean, looking at the actual current playoff schedule, currently the Panthers have the number 1 seed. Number 2 seeds, actually, it would be the Giants. Number 3 seed is actually pretty close between the Tigers and Cardinals. However, the Tigers have the leg up in this because of the points allowed, points scored, and not points allowed, but points scored. Then in the division, in the playoffs, ending. The Saints are currently next in line, followed by both the Browns and let me make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, by the Browns and Ravens. And the Knights are currently on the block. They're very close to actually being there, but they're not quite in the end because the fact is it's very close between these 2 teams. However, the Ravens and Browns both have a higher amount of points scored, and that is the reason why they're currently versus the AB and the ABO. Current leader here is still the Lions. It is actually, hold on, make sure I'm right about that. It's still currently the Lions, but it's very, very close in that regard. Beagles are number 2 currently, followed very closely by the Athens, and the Werewolves still have the lead in division, and they've been 4th for the playoff hunt pretty much since the entire time. The 2 teams that are in the wild card slots at this point, the Otters are right there. I mean, literally, they're right there. And then looking very closely are the Supermen. Very closely. Supermen are currently in the playoffs, and there are quite a few teams. However, there are quite a lot of teams that have not actually made playoff points. Yes, for example, the Supermen have not made the playoffs. The Chargers haven't made the playoffs. We're looking at the last 4 seasons. There have been sometimes they have. Chargers are pretty new, so they have not been in the playoffs. Westville has not been in the playoffs recently. Beagles didn't make the playoffs for 2 years. And then they've made the playoffs and lost the bubble the last 2 years. Now you might ask me, wait a minute, how on earth how on earth was there only 2 teams that ever won the bubble? Well, here's the reason why. Because originally, this division was all set up differently. Starting 2 years ago, the divisions were set up differently. There were actually still 4 in every division, but there were less teams. In fact, there were 4 less teams at that time, and 2 of the teams are actually in this division. The other 2 were actually mixed up for that. As for the Otters, they've done pretty decently in the playoffs currently. I mean, they're also in a pretty good position to make the playoffs games. Grant, they lost the wild card both times they made the playoffs, but there's a chance. The teams that are looking, the next team we're going to look at here is the team that is in currently first place in division. Well, guess what? They are kind of half and half. The Lions went 12-4 or 12-6 and lost into the wild card. Then they didn't qualify. Then they went 14-3 and lost the division. So they're actually getting a little bit upwards. They're still currently not in the position to be the top seed. However, they're doing decently. But considering all the rest of the playoffs except for the Otters and somewhat of the Lightning, or have not been very good. Yes, the only team that has had any really big hits was the Lightning, and the Otters are putting in a pretty good chance to be really good next year. Beagles are the next one. The Beagles actually have lost the bubble twice. Back-to-back years. So, yeah, the difference is that the first year they won their division. The second year they won the wild card slot because this all was messed up and differently during it. But they've done decently over the last couple of years, and honestly, this is one of those teams that could potentially easily make the playoffs again this next year, and I think likelihood is they will be the divisional leaders. Ethan have been to the playoffs a few times, 2 times, I believe, at this time. They were actually kind of surprising in the one year because the Ethan, which actually it's still edited wrong, they need to fix this, actually went all the way to the Bowl with a 9-1 record. Then they lost the wild card in the next year, and then they got crushed in the next year after that. They've actually done okay this year. They're currently the divisional leaders, but that division is all messed up. Who knows who's going to win that? Who's going to win that division? And they're not the top. Okay, the Dolphins are much more likely to actually win the division in that case. The next team is the Werewolves. I don't even know how to talk about the Werewolves because the Werewolves have actually had some decent years and some bad years. If you saw where we're here, the Werewolves were terrible. Then they were okay. Then they were awesome, and then they were terrible. Okay, so they're kind of iffy, I would say. And honestly, being 4-3-1 at this point is probably not the best situation, even though that is exactly the division leader. I don't expect to see the Werewolves being past round 2 at this point. If they can change around and get a much better record, there is a chance I think they do make the playoffs. And actually might make it past, maybe even make it all the way to the Bowl. But at this time, I don't know. Next team is the Otters. Otters have had some decent years. Nice. Granted, they weren't around in the fall of 2017, but they have actually made the playoffs and almost made. They've 2 out of the 3 years and almost made the playoffs in this year as well. It was actually really close. They were at that time 9th, which did not allow them to make the playoffs. Now, you might say, hey, well, okay, they were 2 points off. Well, actually, they were actually 1 point off because the playoffs were different than last year. So they were 8 teams in the playoffs. That got cut back into this year, so there's only 7 teams. And we have not yet decided where we're going to actually put that into the situation where there's going to be 8 teams again next season. There will be 7 teams this year, but we'll see how that works for next season. All right, next team we have is the Lightning. And Lightning actually have had a really good year, but they've also had some really bad years. They didn't qualify barely in 2018. In 2019, they didn't qualify, and they were not really that close. And then they won the division, but then lost the divisional round. They were 18-0 up to that point. I couldn't even tell you who beat them, honestly, because I don't even know the playoffs were advanced. But then they lost again the divisional round. I think it was actually against the 8th, if I remember correctly. No, it wasn't the 8th. Well, so they probably lost against either the Dolphins or the Beagles. Those are probably one of those 2 teams is probably the team they lost against. But it could be any team. And honestly, the Lightning are in a situation where they could potentially make playoffs. Granted, they won their first 6 games of the season. They have lost 2 games since then, and that kind of hurts a lot. In fact, if you look down at the Lightning's, and you see they've lost the last 3 games, which is not very impressive. Not mention they lost their last 2 games by more than 20 points. Lions game, okay, that was a close game. Then you had the Oilers and Packers, which Packers should not have been a hard, difficult game for them, and the Oilers shouldn't have been a super difficult game for them, but they lost by 20 points each of those. I don't even know. Now, granted, I did have the Lightning not making the playoffs this year, but at this point, they could be honestly right on the line between either making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. The next thing we've got here is, let me go back here, the Supermen. And the Supermen are one of those teams that are kind of, okay, they're terrible. They have not been good at all this season. Their best season was back in 2019, in the fall. And honestly, I don't know this is going to be if it's going to be fun or not. It could go either way, honestly, and to be honest, I don't know what to say about that team. At this point, they're in the playoffs and have a good chance of making the playoffs. But the problem is they are in a they're in an easier division. But with everyone else, with the Lions, the Otters, the Lightning, and Packers, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. It's just going to be. I think they're going to be one of those teams that's on the edge. All right, moving on. On here to the other side, Panthers. Don't need to say about that. They've been 18-0 for the last. Let me see if I'm right about that. 314 games straight. So, yeah. And they've won the Ball Bowl, everything. Now, they have not won all the ball games in the Ball Bowl because the Ball Bowl is games is best of 3. They lost against the Cardinals, and they lost against UNC way back in the day, like 6 seasons. It was like 8 seasons ago. So, yeah, they've lost some games since then with the playoffs. The other team we got, the Giants. The Giants actually have not made the playoffs, I don't believe. No, they have not qualified for the playoffs in the last 4 years. this is a team I think is going to have a good chance of making the playoffs and winning at least to the divisional round. I don't think they're going to get first seed, but I think they'll get at least the second or third seed at this point in time. Currently, they're placed at second. Tigers have been one of those teams that have done a lot. Oh yeah, and they also have they're also kind of a questionable team though, because they have made the playoffs all of their last of the last 6 years. Can we get another team to actually take over? Maybe. That division is a little tough. Who knows who gets? Indians are the only team that's kind of like, I'm not really sure you're gonna make it, but you got some good chances. I think anybody in this division could potentially be the divisional leader. I think the Tigers will be back in the playoffs, but I don't know how they'll do for the rest of the time. I mean, if you look at what they've done, they have went into the division. They lost division. They lost the wild card. They lost the wild card, and they lost division. So they have not advanced. Not mention their average record is seriously like 10, 10 and 8. So not exactly a record that you're gonna say, hey, this is a really good team. Next team we got is the Cardinals. The Cardinals were the team that beat the Panthers in one game a couple seasons ago. The Cardinals made it to the Ball Bowl. That's where they won against the Panthers. Then they lost in the league, which is the championship prior to they lost to the Panthers. They played the Panthers the last 2 years. A league is basically right before the Ball Bowl. That's the league that. Now you might notice that it says the Panthers went to the Ball Bowl and the Cardinals did, and they're two different divisions. Well, they weren't in two different divisions last year. Not to mention anybody can make playoffs at that time, so it wasn't really a fair argument. The Saints have been pretty bad, so I don't have confidence. Not to mention when you actually tie 6 out of your 18 games, it's not exactly the best thing. Browns and Ravens are both in the situation where there could potentially be very good. It'd be interesting to see how that team works. Both the Browns and Ravens have done decently, even though they have not. Even though only combined together they've only been playoffs 4 times. Am I right about that? Nope, 2 times. Just combined, they've done it 2 times, and that will be interesting. We'll see what will happen with that. All right, now let's get on to what happens next week. Now, I have the scores here. I forgot. I did not do them this week for who did it this week. Actually, there we go. Update that. So this is going to be a kind of interesting week out. What is it? 5 divisional games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 divisional games. 6 divisional games. Oh boy. And the game of the week is the Panthers versus the Otters. Which, to be honest, there's not really any other games that could be potentially the game of the week. I mean, Superman and the Eagles are probably the closest. But, but it's a divisional game, so we're not supposed to have them as divisional games. I mean, I guess you could have UNC and the Falcons. But here we go. Panthers and Beagles face off in week. I'm not going to reopen this. Close that. Let's see. Panthers and the Supermen and the Beagles face off. This is honestly going to be an interesting game going on to this week. I mean, honestly, these teams are fighting basically for the first part of the division. Here's the only reason I think that when I'm thinking about this game, they're both very close. The only difference I think is the Supermen do allow way less points in their games, and just average that out. It's 72 points allowed versus 78 points, so it's not really that big of a difference. But I honestly think this is going to be a very interesting game. I'm going to have a hard time predicting. There's a 10-point favoritism in the favor of the Beagles. It's going to be a game that I'm going to say could go either way. I'm going to go with the Supermen this week, and the reason why is because I think both these teams are really good, and the Supermen are slightly better about not allowing as many points. I'm going to go with a 2-point prediction in favor of the Supermen. Could be either way, though, so who knows. Pirates and Ethan. Pirates came out with a surprising win last week, and it could go either way for this one. However, what I have to say from the Ethan standpoint is the Ethan are 5-3 and allow more points than they do score, versus the Pirates. Yeah, they're about the same, honestly, in the context here. The only difference is that the Pirates are scoring about 81 points per game versus the Ethan, who are scoring only 76. And I had to favor the Pirates in that week. I think I favored in last week the Pirates losing. Of course, they were playing a 6-1 team at the time. I'm going to go with the Pirates winning this week, and I might be completely wrong, but who cares? But at this point, I don't even know. 3-point prediction in favor there. It is also 13 points in favor of the Pirates. Panthers and Otters. Oh, boy. This is tough. I mean, honestly, this game could be anybody's game. I mean, in one point, the Panthers haven't lost a game. In, let's see. A little more than 17 seasons. Like 17 and a half seasons. With exception of the playoffs. Otters, it's tough. I'm going to go with the Otters here. I'm going to predict the Otters, even though the Panthers are very much favored in this game. 6-point prediction. It's very tough for me to even predict who wins this game, but I'm going to go with the Otters winning this game. It's the game of the week. It could be either one at this time, though. All right, then we got the Bobcats and Browns. I'm not really going to go into this. The Bobcats are scoring an average of 84 points per game versus the Browns, who are scoring 93. I'm going to go with the Browns winning this game. Saints and Packers. I'm going to favor the Saints in this game. It's going to be an interesting game, and it's going to be kind of tough for me to decide what happens in this game. But I think with the Saints prediction, I'm going to go with that being the win for this. All right, so then we have the Werewolves and Colts. Werewolves have been kind of disappointing. The Colts have been kind of disappointing. Werewolves have been slightly better. I'm very much favoring the Werewolves in this game. And if they don't win, I don't even know. I will say this is a 7-point prediction. I'm going to go with a 12-point prediction in favor of the Werewolves, and the Werewolves do have a pretty huge prediction here. Cardinals and Bulldogs. Cardinals got basically blown out in last week. Is that right? Blown out? Okay, so it wasn't really blown out, but they did lose against the Pirates, who were not doing too well. I have to go to the Cardinals here. I'm gonna go and hope that they redeem themselves this week, and hopefully do better. Jets and Dolphins. I'm going with the Dolphins all day. By the way, here's a 12-point prediction here. All day. Jets have just been disappointing. They were able to win, but they won against UNC. Not really that impressive. 9-point prediction in favor of the Dolphins. Ravens and Lightning. Oh, this is going to be a very tough game. I don't even know. I'm going to go with the Ravens winning this game because I think the Ravens have a slight edge. And the reason, even though if you look at what the Lightning is scoring an average of 94 points per game versus the Ravens, who are scoring only 88 points per game. The difference here is that the Lightning are allowing way more points in the context of per game versus what the Ravens are allowing per game. It's going to be a close game, and I think it's going to go either way. I'm going to go with a 3-point prediction here. Knights and Dragons. Well, this is a fun one. We're just go to a fairy tales fantasy, and then we're going to go Knights, Dragons. I'm going to go with the Knights winning this one. It's a game that's going to be decided by the wire. 1-point prediction, even though it says 31 points in favor of the Dragons. I have to go with that being what it is. Tigers and Indians. I'm going Tigers all day. I don't think there's any chance that the Indians win this game. 7-point prediction. Westfield and Chargers should be a pretty good game. I'm going to go with a 2-point prediction in favor of Westfield. I think Westfield has a slight better edge in this case. Because Westfield here, if you look for Westfield has an 85 overall with an 86 versus the Chargers have a 9. So I think honestly, if the Chargers defense shows up, the Chargers will win this game. But I think it's more likely the Westfield will. Hawks and Giants, not even going to go hand in hand. 31-point prediction in favor of the Giants. I don't think Hawks have any chance. In a couple weeks, the Hawks and Falcons will play each other. I'm going to go with UNC losing this game, actually. I'm going to go with Falcons, even though I think it's going to be I could be completely wrong about this. That's what I'm going to go with. The Angels and Dogs divisional matchup. Pretty close game front. I'm going to go with the Dogs in this game with a 2-point prediction. Haven't got an idea who's going to win that game. This could be either way. It's going to be back and forth all day. In reality, the Angels should win this game, but I'm thinking the Dogs are going to win this game. Not because they have a better record, but yes. Okay, Lions and Tex. I'm going to go with the Lions winning this game. It is 1-point prediction in favor of the Lions, and I'm going to go with a 1-point prediction in favor. I think the Tex will do a really good fight, and it will be interesting to see what happens in that game. I think honestly the best game of the week will end up being the Westfield and the Chargers game, but Panthers and ours game will be a really good game as well. That is all for this episode for Sports Hour. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next Thursday. That will be the 7th. And don't forget, guys, to keep going. And if you guys do want to put your predictions in, you can put those in the comments down below. I will please. Or if you want to make your own team, you can go back to episode number 1 and put your team into there. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget, guys, is to think about next year, because next season, hopefully more people will be able to get into it, and some people might be able to take control of a team. That's all for this Sports Hour. See you next time.